Board December meeting to order. And just want to make sure in regards to the notice that this meeting is being held electronically because the Transportation Policy Board determines that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Middle Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. I would ask that when we are doing our voting, that if you are going to abstain or if you are going to vote no, would you please identify yourself for the record? And also, if you make the motion or second, if you'll also identify yourself as well. I want to thank each one of you for your participation over the course of this year. I know that it's been a really difficult year for all of us. There was kind of no playbook or game plan to what we've all had to deal with. But thanks to you all, we're now close to finalizing our regional transportation plan. The draft RTP is under review by the state and our federal partners, and we expect comments by the end of the week. Once staff receives these comments, they're going to work to address them in preparation for the release of our draft regional transportation plan for official review by the public and comment, so that in January we can adopt the plan. January will be the review and comment by the public, and then February is when we will officially adopt the plan. I know this has kind of been a long time coming, and we're all glad to see this take place. On today's agenda, we're going to have a number of items that are related to status and updates of the projects that are on our transportation improvement program. And I know that we're going to cover a lot of projects, but I want you to understand how important it is that we review these and that we stay on top of them within our own communities, and that we make sure that they are implemented and being done so in a timely fashion. And also keeping our staff up to date on what's going on. So with that, we will move into our agenda, and our first item on the agenda is approval of the October 21st, 2020 meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion, Mayor Reed, Billy Vogel.
Thank you, Mayor Vogel. Do I have a second?
Second, Jim Kerr, City of Murfreesboro.
Thank you, Jim. And any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Minutes pass. We'll now move on to item 2, which is our public comments. Is there anyone here who would like to address this board at this time? If so, if you will state your name, where you live, and the organization in which you represent, if you represent one. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to item 3, which is our only action item today. And this is the adoption of resolution TPB 2020-07, which is amending the fiscal year 2020 through 2023 TIP. And Anna is going to take us through this before we hold our public hearing. Anna.
Thank you so much, Mayor Reed, and good morning, everyone. The current slate of proposed amendments that we have before you today are the first cycle for the new fiscal year 2021. We have not had the chance to review all of these together just yet, so I'm going to go through each of them, and I want to be sure that anyone who has any questions about any of them has the opportunity to ask those. And you may remember that we solicited a call for project cost overruns prior to this amendment cycle, and we were on the lookout for applications from all of you for any projects that were experiencing overruns in either the construction or right-of-way phase of project work. in the hopes that we could maybe shift some funding around and provide the funding that would bring those phases to completion. I'm happy to say that we were able to provide funding to all of the projects that applied for that overrun. So in this slate of amendments, you're going to see a mixture of both these projects that are being awarded additional funding through that call, as well as our just normal run-of-the-mill, if you will, amendment requests. So we'll get started with the first amendment in the package, which is a request from Murfreesboro. It's for the Bradyville Pike Widening Project. TDOT had committed to provide this project with additional funding for the right-of-way phase, which they are doing through this amendment. This project had actually also rolled out of our current TIP because it didn't have any funding programmed to it at the time we created the TIP. So now that it does, we are amending this project back into the TIP. TDOT has also committed to providing construction funding for this project in the future, just so everyone's aware of that. Next is a request from TDOT for the State Route 109 Portland Bypass project. They are adding funds to this project for the right-of-way phase. Following that is a request from the City of Columbia for their bridge replacement at Iron Bridge Road project. We are amending the project into the TIP with local funds only at this time so that Columbia can get started with work on this project. Following that, the request from the City of Lebanon for their traffic signal restoration project. Fortunately, Lebanon received some federal emergency relief program funds for some signals in the city that were damaged in the March 3rd tornado. So this is helping to fund various work associated with rebuilding and replacement of some of those signals. After that, the request from Mount Juliet for their Cedar Creek Greenway Phase 1 project. This is where we're kind of going to get into some of these projects that receive money through the call for cost overruns. So Mount Juliet is receiving additional construction funding for this Greenway project. We also have a request from Mount Juliet for their Woodridge Place Sidewalks project. They are receiving additional funds for this project. This is another project that was in a previous TIP but was not carried forward into the current TIP because all current program funding had been previously obligated. So we're both adding the project back into the TIP and adding funds to the project. And then we have a final request from Mount Juliet for their Town Center Trail project. This is the same situation. We're adding funds for construction of the project, also adding this previously programmed project back into the TIP to include these cost overruns. We have a request from Smyrna for their Weekly Lane and Swan Drive intersection improvements project. We were able to provide additional funding to this project as well through the call for cost overruns. They're receiving additional funds for construction. And we have a request from Smyrna for their Lowry Street improvements project, also adding funds here for construction on this project. We have a request from Murfreesboro for their Mercury Boulevard sidewalk project. We are adding funding for construction to this project. And a request from Murfreesboro for their Rutherford Boulevard adaptive signal control technology project, also adding funds for construction and ITS work to this project. Then you will see a page for GNRC's Highway Infrastructure Program Grouping Project. This page is included in order to show a shifting of funds out of this grouping to, I believe it's one of the Smyrna projects that we are adding money to through the call for cost overrun. So this is just showing a shift in funds of some additional funding that we're providing due to the call for cost overruns. And then finally, we have a request from TDOT for their Nashville area I-40 Smartway expansion project. TDOT is adding additional funding to this project for construction. And if anyone has any questions at all, I'm happy to answer those before we move along.
Okay, Anna, anything else before we move to hold the public hearing?
I don't think so, Mayor Reed. Not if anybody has any questions. I will just mention that this slide is depicting our final dates for this amendment cycle. Of course, we have this before you today for adoption.
Okay, thanks, Anna. So at this time, I will go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and go to this board to see if we have a motion to adopt resolution TPB 2020-07, which is amending the fiscal year 2020 through 2023 Transportation Improvement Program.
I will make a motion. This is Rick Graham.
Thanks, Mayor Graham. Do I have a second?
This is Paige Brown's second.
Thanks, Paige. And any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you all. Any no's? Okay, then we are moving on from our action item to our informational items. And our first item is our annual listing of obligations and project updates. And Anna, I think you've got this one as well.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor Reed. Every year around this time, we present to you this annual listing of all of the projects that had federal funds obligated toward project phase work over the course of the past fiscal year. So this is the annual listing for fiscal year 2020, which ended on September 30th. We had about $244 million worth of federal transportation funds obligated toward work in our region. This is both, projects that TDOT is implementing, projects that you guys are implementing locally. It's a snapshot of everything in the region. All told, we had about $117 million worth of FHWA funds obligated and $127 million worth of FTA funds obligated, which is a lot more than we typically see in the FTA realm because it includes the $75 million that our region received in CARES Act funds for coronavirus-related response issues and efforts. About $24 million of this overall funding total was MPO suballocated funds, so money that the MPO has discrepancy over to provide to all of you guys for your work through our long-range transportation plan. So that entire listing is found in your packet if you want to look through those and just get a snapshot of everything that took place in the region over the past fiscal year. Also in your packet, you will find a copy of what we're calling our TIP project tracker. This is another spreadsheet where you'll see some color coding at the top, shows kind of a snapshot of anything that anybody has programmed in our TIP with that suballocated MPO money. So this tracker sheet is not every single project that's taking place in each of your jurisdictions, but it's every project that has that suballocated MPO funding on it that we're really interested in keeping track of in light of our continued efforts toward responsible and timely obligation of funding in the region. So this tracker sheet rather has, of course, the project names, the various ID numbers associated with the project, what money is programmed towards your project in each fiscal year that's contained in the current TIP, what work phase is associated with that funding. We have kind of a condensed version of this spreadsheet in your packet, but the larger version of the spreadsheet also contains notes related to project implementation, kind of how things are going, what phase is the project in currently, have your agencies experienced any issues in implementing the project, as well as some notes from TDOT. mostly from their local programs office, on what they know in terms of the project's development. We also presented this tracker to your TCC members at their meeting earlier this month, and have been collaborating with them on just collecting any comments that they have, that they know about these projects' development, making sure that we know where things stand and what issues anyone may be experiencing. We've also been asking for folks to provide us with their proof of local match towards the federal funding outlined for each project, both for fiscal year 2020, if that was never provided, as well as for this current fiscal year 2021. So we just wanted to let you know we've been working with your TCC members on getting this as up to date as possible. We will probably be sharing this newly formatted tracker with you guys on a quarterly basis, just to make sure we're all touching base on this project status report. You know, like Mayor Reed said earlier in the meeting, we're just continuing to make efforts towards getting these projects implemented quickly. So if anybody has any questions about the annual listing of obligations or this reformatted project tracker sheet, I'm also happy to answer any of those. Mayor Reed.
Any questions for Anna on this? Okay, I just want to reiterate what I talked about at the beginning and that Anna talked about. If there are any additional updates, please make sure that your staff is letting our staff know that, so we can note that with the projects. And with that, we will move on to item 4B, which is our regional priorities for TDOT's 3-year work program. And Sean, I think you're going to take this one.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sean Falzer, the Transportation Planning Manager with GNRC. I know we have a couple of new faces with us today, and I'm going to talk about another item that we consider around this time of the year, and this is the TDOT 3-year work program. As part of this process, TDOT seeks input from the MPOs across the state on the projects that TDOT's leading and that are being considered for the state's upcoming 3-year work program. This list will be part of the overall statewide list that TDOT presents to the legislature, typically in the spring for approval by the General Assembly. And as part of this process, TDOT uses feedback from the MPOs as well as the region offices as part of the process to prioritize their growing list of transportation needs, competing for the limited available funding. And many of these candidates you're familiar with. They're already under development, and some are even ready for construction. In the meeting packet, there is a candidate list of projects that we shared with you. It contains a lot of basic project information provided by TDOT, such as the county the project's located in, the TDOT PIN number, the route, and the description. And also, probably most importantly, the requested phase of work that funding is being requested for, as well as the TDOT Region 3 rankings and comments for this year. And a couple of other items that we've incorporated into that candidate list is columns for the TDOT or the TIP ID to indicate if the project is currently programmed in the current TIP, and also the board's rankings from last year's process. And so, as I mentioned, the projects on this list should look very familiar because they are virtually mirror the candidate list that we received last year. And a number of these projects are also, you've seen come across through the 2045 RTP because they reflect a lot of those, in fact, all of those projects that TDOT submitted for consideration through the Regional Transportation Plan process. So that candidate list has approximately 50 projects. The funding request by phase of work breaks down to about 40% requesting funding for construction, 25% of the projects requesting funding for right-of-way and 35% requesting funding for preliminary engineering. There's no new projects. Only 4 of the projects on this list have changed their phase of work request since last year, and approximately 2/3 of these projects are currently listed in the current tip, so they are short-term priorities. One thing I will mention, we've used a methodology over the past couple of years. That prior methodology to indicate priorities included 4 steps. Step 1, where we looked at phase of development and prioritized projects based on how far they were in the project development process. So prioritizing projects that were ready for construction first, and then those projects entering right-of-way, and then those beginning preliminary engineering and design. Just looking at that methodology, step 1 still holds true because there's been minimal changes in the phase of work that is being requested for projects. Step 2 was indicating projects that were new TDOT priorities for safety and operations, and so these were projects that weren't adding capacity but more improving safety or improving operations within the existing right-of-way. There were not really applicable. Step 2 is not really applicable this year, given that there's no new safety and operations projects. Step 3 of this methodology focused on kind of leaning on our regional transportation plan priorities, and so ranking according to how those projects were evaluated through the plan process. And last year we based on the 2040 RTP, and as you know, we're in the process of finalizing the new RTP priorities through the 2045 RTP. And then lastly, step 4 was new start projects. So these are new, typically capacity adding projects to be considered, and there are no new start projects as we've termed in this list. No new start projects since last year's list. So based on that, our tentative recommendation would be, given that this project list mirrors last year's list, nearly identical, GNRC recommends that the TPB consider endorsing projects in the same rank order as last year. There's also a possibility GNRC could apply the methodology described that I just mentioned, using the latest available information from the 2045 RTP. And then, based on, we're just kind of seeking your guidance on those options for consideration to whether to endorse the draft rankings for the 3-year work program. One other thing that I would mention is that we do have TDOT staff with us today, including Region 3, that are available to address any questions or comments or concerns. Specifically, if you have any concerns or comments on projects that are on the list or projects that are not included on the list, or if you have any comments about their rankings or comments that they flagged related to projects, we can address those as well today. So with that, I think we can open it up to see if there's any feedback on that approach, or questions or comments for TDOT or GNRC staff.
Sean, seeing that there are no questions or comments at this point, I would encourage our members to relay any questions or comments or concerns to staff during this week that you have in regards to feedback on the regional priorities for the TDOT 3-year work program. anything else you need to add, Sean?
No, that would be helpful. And as Anna mentioned, we're also tracking on that TIP project tracker. We also have the TDOT led projects that we will share that information with the board as well, and they can relay comments on the project list or the TDOT projects on that tracker, because they are very they're very similar in capturing the kind of priorities in the short term.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we will move on to our regular reports. And our first report is from FHWA. And Sabrina, I think you're with us today.
One just second, I'm getting set up here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of FHWA Tennessee Division, Sean Santaya is also on the line. We're happy to be here. My name is Sabrina David. I'm the Federal Highway Tennessee Division Deputy Division Administrator, and so we are happy to be here. So we have a few items, and then if there's any questions, just let us know. And so I guess the first thing, we have previously shared information about the extension of the FAST Act, and so the FAST Act does extend through September 30th, 2021. So it was authorized for the whole year. What we are going through now is the annual appropriations. And so there was currently a CR through continuing resolution through December 11th, which has been now extended for a week to December 18th. And so at that point, after December 18th, there'll either be another continuing resolution or a full appropriations, or once whatever is passed, we will share information with you regarding that. So, so if there's any further updates, we'll let you know. Then also the safety targets. We just wanted to remind you the safety targets are due at the end of February. When the state had adopted the state safety targets, the MPOs have 180 days to adopt their targets or pass accept the state targets. And then it's our understanding that the Nashville MPO plans to set your targets the same time that the long range plan is being updated in February. So please let us know if there's any questions y'all have or any assistance. We can also work with TDOT to facilitate those discussions. So if there's any assistance y'all need, please let us know. And then, as mentioned, about the update to a review of the draft metropolitan plan and the CMP updates, we are on target to finish that review by the deadline, and we will get those comments to the MPO by that time frame. So we appreciate that, and we are continuing to finish our review there. And then also during this time, we very much appreciate the MPO's efforts to continue operating virtually, given the situation, and continuing to do business. So we thank you for that. Which also, while we're here locally, and we are not traveling, but this does give us an opportunity to be at your board meetings and your other meetings to provide information and provide any assistance. So thank you for that. And then I guess lastly, we wish everyone a happy and safe and healthy holiday season. So on behalf of Federal Highway. So Mayor Reed, I turn it back to you if there's any questions for us.
Thanks, Sabrina. Any questions for Federal Highway or Sabrina?
Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina. We will now move on to TDOT's report, and I think Matt's going to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. I have a couple items that I did want to talk about. The first one was the I-4081 corridor study. I believe most of you are aware that last week we completed our latest round of virtual public meetings, and we are now in the process of finalizing the comments we received and putting together our recommendations. So we are currently in the recommendations phase of this project and are on track for a spring delivery of the report. I just wanted to give a report on that. If there's anybody that would like to possibly comment on how they thought the meeting was received, that would be great. I think, Sean, you were there. I believe a couple of our members did attend that virtual meeting. Okay. If not, we can move on to the second round here, and that's what is on the screen now. It's, oops, sorry. So, okay, well, having said that, if you want to go back to that corridor slide, that'd be great. Just to let you know that we have, if you do have comments that you'd like to add, you can maneuver over to our website, our project website, and look at some of the documents that have been created up to this point. But we really appreciate your assistance in getting this, getting the meeting set up, and your input into this. So moving on to the next, the urban transportation planning grants. I believe some of you have heard of rumblings of this. We are taking the rest of this year to try to get the word out about this upcoming pilot program. This is essentially an attempt to help with some of the urban jurisdictions in creating more of a cohesive multimodal transportation system. So we are, again, this is the first year that we are looking for members of our jurisdictions within an MPO area, giving them the opportunity to apply for these urban transportation planning grants. Because this is a pilot year, it's a fairly open request for projects, and if you could look at some of the things that we provided in some of these one-pagers, you can see some of our ideas for eligible projects. We are opening the application period on January 4th, and staff has recently sent the mini application out to the MPOs so we could disseminate that to the jurisdictions through the MPOs. We released this in a draft form right now just so you can get an idea of what the application is asking for. It's a Word-based document, so we're trying to make it as simple as possible to enter, but there is a couple, I guess, formatting items in there that we thought you might want to just test the waters if you're not completely word savvy on, and we would have the ability to answer those questions before it goes live on January 4th. As it says here, we're looking for a 10% match requirement. The maximum award is $200,000. We're looking to award one per MPO. So if you have multiple jurisdictions within an MPO area that have applied, it will be competed between the jurisdictions in the MPO and not across the state. Again, this is the pilot program. We're going to see how this goes and maybe tweak things in future years depending on what kind of applications we get. So the application period will be open from January 4th and they will be due January 15th. I believe Jonathan and the rest of TDOT were working on a project website for that. So as soon as that goes live, we can help direct you to that. And that's where some of the applications will be and more information. So I think that's all I have to say about those two items. If there are any questions, please speak up.
Any questions for Matt? Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Yes, to you too. We'll move on to the chair's report at this point. Our 2021 meeting calendar is included in your packet that was sent out. All the meetings are posted online at gnrc.org under calendar. I would encourage each one of you to browse through the GNRC member resource guide that was distributed by email that came along with our packet. It includes updated information about the organization, our boards and committees, our services and programming, and our staff as well. I would encourage each one of you to stick around for the GNRC Executive Board meeting for an update on the COVID-related impacts that Max Baker is going to do. And before we end our meeting, I will let Michael talk a little bit about making sure you know how to get from this meeting to our GNRC meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to, I think Daniel and Sean both have something under staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. Good morning, everyone. So the Americans with Disabilities Act requires that all local and state entities provide a grievance procedure and at least one employee to coordinate ADA compliance. I'm happy to report that all of our member communities have met this requirement, but entities with 50 or more employees are required to complete ADA self-evaluations and transition plans that detail any structural changes that need to be made to bring an entity into compliance. 19 out of our 27 communities in our region that have 50 or more employees have completed this requirement. I've reached out to many of you in the past couple of weeks. Thank you to those who have responded with updates, and thank you to the communities who have posted their plans and completed this part of the process. There are 6 communities that are underway with their plans and 2 communities that I haven't heard from. Keep in mind that these plans are living documents and only represent minimum requirements. There's always more to be done to make sure that your community is accessible to people with disabilities. Sean, if you could move to the next slide. So if you see your community on this list and the status is incorrect, please contact me. If you haven't heard from me and are responsible for this requirement, please also contact me as soon as you can. And if you have any additional updates or have any questions, please contact me by email. My email is on the previous slide. So if anyone has any questions, I can answer them now, but if not, I'll hand it back to Sean.
Thank you, Daniel. The one thing I wanted to kind of go back to on the regional priorities for the TDOT 3-year work program. I know that TDOT is seeking the regional priorities from the MPOs. They'd like to have those by the end of the year. And so I apologize for kind of bringing this item back up, but if the board is in agreement to utilize the same rank order as last year, then we can go ahead and request an endorsement of those draft rankings to submit to TDOT, just so that we help them stay on schedule with the development of the 3-year work program.
Okay, so Sean says that we need to get a request for endorsement to utilize the same rankings as last year to indicate regional priorities for TDOT's 3-year work program. Do I have someone that will make a motion for that?
So moved, Mayor Reed, Billy Vogel, Robinson County.
Thank you, Mayor Vogel. Do I have a second?
It's Rick Graham. I'll second.
Thanks, Mayor Graham. Do we have discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Sean, I will turn it back over to you for an update on the statewide performance measure targets.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. I apologize for that confusion. The last thing I just wanted to note before we transition to the executive board meeting is that TDOT is, the state has recently shared a state biennial performance report, and this relates to the performance-based planning and the performance measure targets that we are requested to or required to adopt on different cycles. As you recall, the state performance measure targets we update annually. These are actually the other two performance measure targets relating to system performance and infrastructure condition. And so the state this report contains updated target information for the infrastructure condition related to bridges and pavement, and then also system performance as it relates to reliability on the interstate system. And we summarize some of the key updates in the following tables. And so I'll just mention first on infrastructure condition, which focuses on the national highway system, bridges, interstate pavement, and non-interstate pavement. Based on there's a number of columns within this sheet, but kind of the main takeaway is that based on the 2-year performance, so there's the baseline performance, and then a 2- and 4-year target. So based on that 2-year performance, TDOT's proposing to keep the 4-year targets for all of the measures the same, with the one exception of the percent of non-interstate NHS pavement in poor condition, the one at the bottom, which TDOT is proposing to increase from 4% of non-interstate NHS pavement in poor condition to 5%. And then on the next slide, on the system performance, which that captures travel time reliability on the interstate system as well as the non-interstate NHS system, and also for freight. Based on the 2-year performance, TDOT is also proposing to keep the existing 4-year targets the same, with the one exception for freight reliability, which TDOT is proposing to increase from 1.33 to 1.37, which, to make sense of that, closer to 1 indicates more reliability, and so drifting further away from 1 indicates things that would be more unreliable. And so we just wanted to preview some of these updates as we consider that whether to support the state targets or to set regional targets in the coming months. That's all I had to relay. Mayor Reed.
Great. Any questions for staff? Okay, any other business to come before this board? Michael, for those that are not on online with us that might be calling in, do you want to talk a little bit about how to move over to the GNRC executive board meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very happy to do that. So I went ahead and put a couple of links in the chat. The easiest thing to remember is our meeting information, including how to join, is available at gnrc.org/calendar. But also put a direct link into the chat that'll take you straight to the Teams meeting. That's gnrc.org/meetings/online-xb. So we look forward to seeing you over there at 11:30. We do have a really interesting agenda today. Angie Hubbard, our Director of Economic and Community Development, is going to be talking about GNRC's recovery loan program for small businesses that are struggling through the COVID-19 pandemic. And I want to make sure you're aware of that opportunity to help your local economy. And then Max Baker, our Director of Research and Analytics, is going to be presenting some analysis on mobility trends during the pandemic, which I think is pretty insightful in terms of understanding changes in behaviors, not just from a traffic congestion standpoint, but sort of economic activity and roadway safety and some other things that you will be interested in. In the meantime, between now and the beginning of that meeting at 11:30, I would encourage you to take the 2 surveys that were included in the agenda packet email that Lou sent out. One is going to help us pull together some resources to elevate the coordination of veteran services across our region. The other survey is going to help GNRC and TASER, the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, how the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting your local infrastructure needs. So both of those links are included in the email that was sent out by Lou. I'll have them on screen at the next meeting starting at 11:30, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Great, thanks, Michael. I have been trying to multitask and look at the meeting chat as we've been going on, and I do see, I think, the new mayor of Coopertown, Becca Werner, and we are glad to have you with us. Has there been any others that have joined that are new to our board that I might have missed that anybody's seen?
Bell, Lebanon. This is Rick Bell from Lebanon. I've been mayor for 2 weeks, so I'm glad to be here with you guys, and I'm very interested in the regional aspect of this job. So this is a great experience. So thank you.
Well, we are glad to have you and look forward to meeting you in person. I will tell you, it is a pretty active board and one where we enjoy getting together and talking about things that are going on within our communities. I also see Mayor Derek Adams from Nolensville as well. Is there anybody else that I might have missed? Okay, I just want to say how much I have enjoyed working with each one of you this year. It has been a year like I think none of us ever thought we would be going through. I look back on what I was doing this time last year, and I think if you would have said to me the world is going to kind of change in the way we all know it, I would have thought you were crazy. But I think that's exactly what's happened. I feel very blessed to live in Middle Tennessee and to be working with each one of you. I think you all have done an amazing job through a really trying time. I wish nothing but the best for you over this holiday season, and I hope each one of you has a great Christmas and New Year. And if there is nothing else to come before this board, then we are adjourned. See you in January.